Hello everyone and welcome to the Classic Review. That's right, we are here to talk about 2001. We finally got there through the masses of episodes.
Oh, 4 episodes a week.
It did.
I'm
all
not
changed.
used to this. 4 episodes a week. I'm used to it for nowadays EastEnders, but not for classic EastEnders. Classic EastEnders, we were just talking about it earlier today. Like, we could get through, a year's worth in a couple of months. Knock it out, do a classic, knock it out, do another classic review.
I know. We're really behind as well.
No, I know. Well, things got in the way. Moving. Not that this is an excuse to the listeners, but we've had to move. And
the summer of 2001 got in the way because it did drag. Like, the summer felt like about 9 months. Natalie's been pregnant for about 3 years, it feels.
It does. It feels like such a long time. It's really, really peculiar. And we've had such long gaps between watching episodes as well. It's just, I don't know. It's felt difficult watching it this year. Last year we said, it's better. It was back on track. It felt like we were watching, it was nice to catch up with it. It just felt like it was a bit of a drag this year.
I mean, it's still good and it's still produced well and there's still good characters and storylines. But this is the year where there are bits which we will of course talk about, but there are bits being just what am I watching, or why am I watching this?
Why is this happening?
So it's really thing because obviously the guy on Twitter, that Andy guy, he does top moments coming up this year, doesn't he? And you see the trailer he made for 2001 and it's these moments every single month, huge things are happening.
But they're things that people draw back on as a classic thing.
So you think this is going to be amazing, but actually, when you're actually watching it, especially in the condensed time that we're watching it, it's it's sort of there's all these big hit moments, but then everything around it is a little bit draining.
There's some huge highs, but there's some equally very, very bad lows, and it's peaks and troughs are really staggering as well. They're so noticeable. And you're right.
I mean, the biggest example of the highs and lows are there's 2 weeks which one after the other. 1 week is Martin and Asif trying to have sex in Brighton or wherever they are.
No, it's London.
London, is it?
To London.
And then at the same time, Steve is creating some sort of weird heist
shenanigans.
with Billy and these weird gangsters who all have these odd backgrounds, where one sits in a mansion and plays chess, and
one lives in a council estate with his mum.
Wife.
And Billy gets involved.
And that is literally the low of 2001.
Honestly, I thought that Shenanigans was created by the Mitchells, but I was very wrong. This storyline, the Steve Owen storyline, where he needed money and he needed money fast, so he decided to set up a heist.
Awful. I mean, we'll talk about that later. And then the week after that is the You Ain't My Mother week, where it's the best of EastEnders for 2 to 3 weeks in a row. And it's those polar opposites are what 2001 is, I feel, because it's just so that 1 week is not EastEnders and everything I hate about EastEnders, and then the week after is the top week in all its history. So it's that weird thing, isn't it?
The Steve and as if getting shagged stories was modern day EastEnders. That's what you kind of see as almost the bread and butter of EastEnders today. While the You Ain't My Mother, Yes I Am, Kat, the reveal, Kat's the mother of Zoe. That's kind of
classic.
The classic EastEnders that you want to watch.
The classic formula.
We must also mention that he's survived another year, and that is Mick. He's still there.
I know.
Still there.
He's made
hovering
his 5
around.
appearances. There's not even a storyline to talk about, is there, with Mick?
Well, it's the same storyline.
He did
got a
DJing
job
for Barry's birthday, and that's it.
He DJ'd for Barry's birthday.
That was all he did. And worked in the cafe.
He worked at the cafe, then he got sacked by Phil, then he begged Phil to give him the job back, and Phil was like, yeah, okay, you can have your job back. And then the year ended with him getting sacked again.
Very peculiar.
What's going on with Mick? Why is he there? How is he still there?
He's been there since that woman, the do Valentine. That woman. He's been there since there, isn't he?
No, that was Clyde.
I thought he was introduced with
day's
her as their
Valentine's
band.
Day. No, he wasn't part of that. No, he was part of Hugh, wasn't he? Hugh and Lenny.
Yeah, that was 91. Hugh and Lenny.
Hugh and Lenny wasn't 91 because
Yeah,
they were.
oh,
to the,
sorry, I'm thinking about
You're thinking of Clyde and Michelle.
No, I'm
Michelle
thinking
driving
about
for
that
him.
awful guy and the worker man. The Hugh and Lenny before Hugh and Lenny. I'm thinking about them. No, he was before Hugh and Lenny. He's been in it for like ages. A long time.
No, he came in with Hugh and Lenny. I'm certain of
That's
it.
still a long time.
It's too long.
For someone who's not had a
outstayed his welcome.
storyline.
How has he stayed there for
He's
so
only
long?
had one topless scene as well. So that's not even
I know,
keeping
he's
him
not
in.
even worth eye candy anymore, is he? And what's his sister? Is it his sister? Is he looking
Kim,
after? Kim.
yeah.
She's kind of just hovers around. She's
know.
more mature than he is.
In the summer, she acted like an adult character and had like a full-time job for some reason, and then just disappeared again for like 8 months, and then
She
came
worked at-
Back Christmas Eve, and she was in her school uniform
She
again.
worked on the taxi board,
Yeah.
didn't she? When Mick
It's
couldn't
really
do
odd.
it, which was one of Mick's many jobs that he couldn't cope with. But
I
then
mean,
they do that with Sonia as well, don't they? They make Sonia. She's only 15.
Oh, yeah, she's sitting there drinking glasses
She's
of
there drinking
wine.
bottles of wine. Just sat at the table talking to Jim, down in a bottle of red.
I mean, this will explain how long this year is, because under the character exits, we always start with a character exits. Character exits, Kerry Skinner and Eddie Skinner.
Kerry Skinner. Blibbin' Kerry Skinner. All right, so you come down market with me. She was a welcome exit, to be honest with you. But I was sad to see her dad, Eddie, go. Eddie was a
I'm
good
annoyed
character.
because they got rid of Jeff to replace Jeff with Eddie Skinner, and
And then Pauline
he
didn't want anything to do with
he
it
just
either.
disappeared though. There was no even an exit storyline. Like, it was really odd. He just disappeared when Nick like had something against him stealing, and then he admitted it.
Oh, that's right. I remember. That
And then
was
he
right
just
at the top of the year.
disappeared.
Yeah.
He just disappeared then, and like Kerry was like, "Oh yeah, my dad's." He kept going on about there was a leak in his house for like months, and he
That's
just
it.
lived at Pauline's.
He had to live
and
at
then,
Pauline's for a bit.
and then he just disappeared. It was like, oh, okay,
Well, they must have fixed the league.
that's the Skinners. Poor Ethel, what a legacy. Bloody Kerry and Eddie. So they both
Eddie
left.
was okay. Kerry was the pain in the ass.
Yeah, but he wasn't as good as Jeff, and so it wasn't worth getting rid of Jeff to make Eddie to then get rid of him.
No, of course. Jeff was an amazing character.
So-
Jeff Owen. Is it Owen? It must be Owen, wasn't it? No, not Owen. Yeah,
Jeff-
Mel Owen.
no, Jeff Healy.
Healy, sorry.
Yeah.
Mellow on the brain.
We saw the end of Ashley Cotton as well.
Yes.
We had Nick versus Mark. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a rivalry. They did really well with Nick's story because they didn't just make him better overnight. He disappeared for about half a year, didn't he, to rehabilitate. And Ashley disappeared to his mum, came back, and then wanted to be on his dad's side, didn't he, and show Mark what's what, and got on his bike.
Well, no,
Little
but-
did he know Nick had sabotaged Mark's bike to kill
He
him.
cut the brake wire, the brake fluid. Yeah, so he then crashed into the laundrette window, which as if had done not that far before, had he? He drove a car into the
Yeah, he's all right.
poor laundrette. Yeah.
It's weird that it killed Ashley because it wasn't going that.
Well, he wasn't wearing a helmet,
No,
and he
yeah,
went
but-
head first into
Well, it
a
was
wire
back-
window.
back first, and the
Well,
wire would have
okay,
padded
fine,
his.
but he broke
would have-
his neck. I think that may have killed him.
I mean, this is now like deaths are an everyday occurrence in EastEnders now.
Deaths
I
have been
feel
raked up a little bit
because
haven't
like he died and everyone was like, "Oh, that's a shame." But then like that was
No,
it.
that's
Well,
unfair.
Martin didn't care. And that was his only friend.
But
Didn't see Martin.
Martin actually had a love-hate relationship. I don't think they were
No,
like BFFs.
but there was there wasn't like a big, when like Arthur died. I know Arthur's not comparable to Ashley Cotton, but like the community kind of got over Ashley's death quite quickly.
You've basically made the point. Arthur was part of the community. Ashley wasn't. He was just part of Nick. And
I know.
it
But once
was
upon a time, that would have really affected that
Well, there
community.
was a fall. Not recent. Well, okay, sorry, a few years back. But like Ashley, Mark was upset when Ashley died because he blamed himself for it. Then Nick was really upset because he had the guilt of knowing that he was the one who cut the wire. And then when Dot found out, there was the aftermath of her banishing Nick out of her house.
I never want to
She
see
gave
you
him-
again.
Yeah, she gave him like 50 quid or something and a tin of sweets and told him to get out. So there was aftermath. I think that's unfair. I think it'd being a bit cruel there.
I don't know. It just feels like the death toll makes it a bit casual now Hi, Phil. Another death, Audrey Truman, beloved. The best matriarch I've ever seen in the history of EastEnders. In the history of soap, any soap.
The only good thing you got out of it was that she introduced three
Died.
good characters. Well, yeah. She introduced three good characters. Paul, Patrick and Anthony.
Yes.
We were all excellent together. Ensemble piece together is fantastic. But Audrey,
Poor
no.
Audrey. Her death was really like crap as well.
But she was really cruel as well. Her
She like
last
walked
dying
into
word.
a bit of a pole and then was like, ooh. And Pauline just sort of looked at her like, what are you doing? And then
Who
she
was
just
it?
died.
Who was it who was with her? And then Anthony was like, did you not think of telling me that she did that?
Wasn't it Pauline?
Was it Pauline?
I think
Because Pauline
so.
kind of said, "Oh, yeah," because he was kind of.
She hit her head.
Yeah, she hit her head on some scaffold. So did you not think to tell me that? But yeah, so her final
It was like a really light knock as well, and it wasn't the builders who hit her. She walked into it because she was moaning.
Yeah,
She was so
just
annoying.
Constant moaning by Audrey. She was just a nag.
Even to her dying, last word, she was horrible. Like to
She was
Paul.
horrible to Paul. She said that I've never loved you.
Yeah. Even though she knew the truth, apparently, she still
knew
didn't
the truth
admit
the
to
whole
him.
time. Yeah, and then in her will, she gave everything to Paul.
Yeah, because Patrick said you won't get into heaven if you don't. So she did her will, but she would never admit, even her in her last breath, she wouldn't say to Paul the truth or anything.
You, I knew all this. Yeah. No,
horrible.
she
I'm
was a
glad she
bitch.
died. She was really annoying.
She was a horrible character.
She was just
nothing nice or redeemable about her at all. And that was the funny thing, that everyone in the square kept saying like, "Oh, Audrey, she was such a lovely person." It was like, was she? Because I never saw it once on screen.
She's horrible.
So she must have been doing some really fantastic things off screen. Even when she was in the Vic, she would just sit there looking sour. Like she would sour.
She just
like
hated
her own
everyone.
drink. She was just angry all the time. Like, everything upset her.
And the final
Jeez.
exit we have, the last we see of this character, is Dan Sullivan. He came back again for some reason after the sort of Who Shot Phil palaver and got blamed for it, and then
Another big moment of the year.
Yeah, and then he came back again for the court scenes, and then he came back again when he got released and introduced us to 4 episodes a week. And,
See, that was another kind of like, I think that was another, like
that was a very long week.
Long week.
I refuse to believe that was 4 episodes. I'm sure it was like 8 or 9.
Well,
Went on forever.
You spotted straight away that as soon as, because that was when the 4 episodes were introduced for the whole Mel getting kidnapped by Dan story.
And it was really boring.
And Phil's kung fu skills when he jumped out of the no, that was it. He called the
the
lift,
elevator,
didn't he? He called the elevator, and he was hiding behind the stairs. And so Dan went into the elevator, and Phil jumped from 2 steps and went, "Hi-ya!" karate kick, and like kind of chopped him on the back of the neck.
Yeah, because he brought her to like some weird abandoned tower block, but the elevators were working. And no, Phil was too clever. He somehow got up the stairs somehow before the elevator and got past Dan on the stairs to then jump down the stairs to hit him.
But also when he went up on his way up to the top to the stairs to then go 1 floor above him so he can jump off the 2 stairs to give him the karate job, he was pressing random buttons. So Dan was getting really confused because one of the lifts was at 2 and then one of the lifts was at 12.
They should have had a little old lady inside of one, I
all over
think.
the lift. Eh?
A little old lady should have been in there and be like, oh, scared when he had his bat.
No, because there wasn't an abandoned tower block.
Well, the elevators are in good condition.
It's always the elevators are the last thing to go.
Mel was chained to the radiator, wasn't she?
So was Phil at one point, but Phil ripped it off with his brute strength because that's Phil.
Although, a little tidbit, Tamsin Outhwaite refused to be untied in between takes.
Oh,
she wanted to
is she?
stay in character of being kidnapped, so she stayed handcuffed and tied up in between takes.
Did people feed her lunch? Like,
Yeah, no, slapped her.
with my Muller rice. What? Shut up, bitch.
Before they start, she's like, "No one feed me and pour some water over me, thank you."
Yes, gasoline would be better, but water will do for now.
But even her method acting still. The whole week, whatever it was,
fine.
2 weeks, it was so boring and like. It was dragged out to fill time.
And this is what I was going to say. You noticed that there was scenes like the scenes which would normally be very condensed and brief and quick.
Well, like now 3 scenes
are now 3
throughout an
scenes
episode.
long. Yeah, it's like at one point I think that there was a bit where Steve was just walking across the room very slowly, and we were just there witnessing it for 30 seconds. Like they literally needed to fill up. 4
And like, I'm
episodes
sure,
a week.
like later on, there was someone who was like buying a lottery ticket, and then they were talking about buying it, and then they were talking to someone else. Oh, I've got it, and it's like. Once when there was less episodes, that would have just been they bought the lottery ticket.
Well,
But
they wouldn't even mention it.
now you need to see the story of how they got the money to buy the lottery ticket, buying it in the Minute Mart, and then something happening and then discussing it later. So that's what it feels like with this year. So
Was this the first year when the Minute Mart was actually the Minute Mart as well?
yes, since As If crashed into it.
And that's when they did. That's it,
Yes,
because
and then it
Terry
suddenly
and
turned
Irene
into
sold it then to a big conglomerate.
Yes, and we got introduced to our new characters. So we can go on to them. We've got Sharon returns.
She's not new.
Yeah, but she
She's a
returns
stalwart.
after a long break.
She did. She came. You bet you didn't
With her
see
long
me
hair.
come in. Or whatever What's her line? Her famous line that I've just butchered.
Bet you never
intended.
thought you'd see me again. Hello,
Yeah.
Peggy. Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah, because Peggy was very upset because she's bought the Vic. And she's got the Queen Vic bust, but Peggy wanted... That was the first bit, wasn't it? Peggy and Sharon were battling over who had the rights for the Queen Vic. And it actually came down
Peggy
to the
wanted
point
the curtains in the end, I think, didn't she? And then Sharon cut
wanted
them
this-
up.
Well, Peggy had left the loads of stuff in the attic as well. And she was like, "I want to get that now." It's like, what was the plan in the first place? Just to leave it in the attic? But no, it was in the contract that the Queen Vic bust stayed with the Vic. And Peggy was getting
upset.
Marcus and all kinds of people to get that sorted out. I was like, "No, I want that bust."
Yeah, so she
All
returned.
mine.
She had lots of things going on, lots of secrets and things. We already mentioned Patrick. He was a new character.
Yeah,
So
excellent.
he turns
start.
up, no money, and he just wants to leech off his son's kind of. That's how he was introduced, wasn't it? Waiting to see what was given to him in the will. Nita, who now runs the Minute Mart single-handedly. So she's there. She's sort of there for Robbie, but she's not the best character. Harry Slater was introduced for the big story of the year.
That sweaty mess, yeah.
Hello, Peggy. I'm just going to go to the Vic.
He had the body of a blooming skittle, not the
What's
sweet.
going on, Charlie? Can you write me a letter?
He wrote Charlie. Charlie wrote him 2 letters.
Nice backstory there. He'd done it all their young life, hasn't he? Every girl that Charlie's
Ever loved.
No, Harry's ever got. He's got Charlie to write a love letter for him.
Well, and also Harry's stolen all of his loves. Didn't he almost do it with Viv as well? Or did he actually? No, Viv had an affair. We found out. It was a bit.
Well, they've really done all sorts of Viv, haven't they?
Yeah, they've really done the bad on poor old Viv.
Horrible character now. Old Viv Slater. We got introduced to Belinda Peacock for the first time.
Loved Belinda.
Yes, so she was there with her wig at the first hen do of Lynn.
Yes,
One of 2 this year.
that was at the Argy Bargy.
Who else have we got? Derek. He was there at Christmas for the
yeah.
panto with the big storyline for Wendy Richards. Her big
Panto
moment.
story.
Where she has to act on stage with her camp hand. Oh, what do we do then?
I think it was a bit of a warm-up act for her, though, because they were trying to get her back. Because we mentioned on previous years that really Pauline's had nothing to do. For the last 2-3 years, Pauline's been very much a D character.
Yeah.
But now, because of Mark and Lisa and the paternity of
Louise
and so on and so forth, they've had to bring Pauline back into the forefront. Especially for that brilliant scene in the Vic with Peggy, which
I love
we'll
that
talk
scene.
about.
It's so funny.
So yeah.
Paul Truman, he was introduced this year.
Yep, love Paul.
Kelly, who was Zoe's friend when she was homeless, and she's into it in next year a bit more.
Yep.
And Nathan and Jane, who is
Cora.
Posh Cora.
Very posh Cora.
Posh and ill, but she's a bit posh, isn't she? And a bit wet.
Just explain. Just wait a second, Ben. I'm just taking a sip of my coffee because I really want to taste that coffee.
You should. You should really taste it.
Close to death, you really start to taste that coffee.
Bless them. So yes, we found out of a secret son.
Yeah.
With a handsome man who is Barry's brother.
Who thought Roy had it in him?
Well,
The
it's all
offspring
Jane's
of
side.
Roy was Barry.
It's all that posh coffee that Jane was drinking. You see?
Carte d'or, whatever they call it.
So those were the new characters, old characters. So not a lot of exits, quite a few new ones, and the cast is sort of bloating more and more because of the.
It's expanding, isn't it? And
So-
as we said, Mick is still there.
Yes, well, I'm just waiting for another topless scene, or at least a vest or something.
Does he
Who
get an
knows?
exit? Do you think? Do you think he'll
God
have
knows.
Do you think he's still in it now? Do you think the actor is still contracted by the BBC? And
it's like the Trevernier, like granddad, who was just there for like years and then just disappeared after that scene. It was really weird.
Well, it's a bit like Beppe, if you think about it, because all Beppe's been this year has been a Lothario, hasn't he?
Should we talk about Beppe to start off the year? Because
start with a high.
His storyline is just, he should have left with the family. Why they kept him, I have no idea. Because all he's done all year is sleep with women. That's for ages.
Basically been his story.
The end. Let's move on. No, he slept with loads of women.
Perhaps caught AIDS.
Oh yeah, from that woman.
HIV. Sorry.
No, it was the clap.
Was it the clap?
That's what the husband said, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
And then he like got all upset about that, and then he's sort of been flirting with Lynn throughout the year. And then they did eventually sleep. Well, they didn't sleep together. Did they sleep together?
Yeah, on the night before her wedding.
That was it, the second wedding.
Well, it was her first wedding, second hen do.
Yes.
Hen / groom deal.
Stag,
thank you. Groom deal. Yeah, that's when they. That's
because
when they
Gary lovingly had just decided that moment that actually I'm not going to cheat anymore on Lynn. I do love her actually, and then he saw her kissing him in the window.
Well, he decided that on the first.
Oh yeah, because Charlie is the great stepdad. He drew a circle on the thing and said, "This is a button. If you could not marry Lynn, would you press it?" Or something like stupid like that, wasn't it? And that really got Gary thinking.
Well, Gary sat there for
his
about
mechanical
2 hours.
mind.
Yeah.
Button. I do love Lynn, I think.
Would this honestly open a trapdoor underneath Lynn and she'll disappear forever into a vortex of nothing?
And it's like,
yeah.
But, I never really believed Lynn and Beppe's like great love. It's like, really?
It wasn't Lynn's great love, it was Beppe's great love.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but I don't believe it.
I love
Bless Lynn. But no, she's not really.
I mean, he gate crashed Lynn and Gary's wedding at the registry office. Almost cancelled the whole thing, but then Lynn's decided that
she did it.
Gary was the one.
Yes.
And then they went off their honeymoon. He came back in a neck brace, but he was still able to perform. That was disgusting as well.
That was disgusting. They like came downstairs Christmas Day like, "We finally done it, everyone.
We finally shagged."
So really?
We've done it.
Do we really need to know that?
Yeah, but he couldn't do
Christmas
it
dinner?
He couldn't do it because he broke his neck or he hurt his neck, so he couldn't. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't have to do much, does he? He always lay on his back.
Well, she's used to Beppe now, so he has to up his game, doesn't he?
That's true. Beppe.
So that was Beppe's 2001.
What a year for Beppe, eh? What a year. What about his son? What did he do? He was in the Nativity, wasn't he?
Didn't he fall over or something? I can't remember.
Probably.
I'm sure he fell into like the pit, didn't he, in the arches?
Was that year?
I don't know.
In the imbalance made him fall. He probably fell over a small pothole.
So, big storyline then. What about Phil Mitchell? We had Who Shot Phil?
That was all
big
right.
Big story. I remember because I watched this when it recorded first time round. And I remember it being like this huge, massive thing.
It was a huge, massive thing.
It was, but then when I watched it this time, it was a bit rubbish. Well, it didn't really go anywhere. Lisa just kind of got away with it and no one cares.
I mean, Phil's allowed her to get away with it, I suppose, is more than anything. And he framed
like, no one
Dan
knows, do they?
For it.
Mark knows and Mel, and that's it. But like the wider community.
No, I suppose not. Why isn't Lisa? See, Lisa's very quick at blabbing information to people. Why did she get that one so quiet? Because it gets her in trouble. That's probably why. The other information that she blabbed this year.
Yeah, Lisa was really annoying this year.
Lisa, I feel bad for Lisa, and I can kind of see why like her character became what she became, which is like this very fragile-minded person. And I get that Phil...
She doesn't help herself, though.
This is it. I get that Phil had been very dominant and, you could argue, bullying toward her. But she really doesn't help herself. She really doesn't at all. Like that, her knowing that Louise was Phil's baby did not need to be leaked. She gave birth to Louise and she just blabbed it immediately to Sharon. I was like, "Oh, Phil's baby."
Yeah, because the nurses were like, "Oh, you're meant to be induced tomorrow." She was like, "No, I'm not. Sharon, yes, Phil's the dad." It's like, what? It's so ridiculous. So
She's too quick. But I didn't mind the Who Shot Phil story, and I get why it had the big publicity. I think you're right. It was a bit of an.
It's because we watched it within like.
And also we knew what the result was.
Yeah.
And as I say, it was a bit anticlimactic. I don't know if at the time people felt the same way. But I mean, that's like, hasn't that been credited as being like the biggest like boost to the grid. Like at the moment, they had to postpone a football match.
They did live football match. They
Live
postponed
football match for that
for the outcome.
outcome.
I do remember it was really big at the time, but
It was in all the papers.
it's because we already knew the outcome, I guess. But so that's where Dan Sullivan got framed for it and arrested, and that led on to the Steve storyline because his mum came back and died, kissed him,
wanted more
because he like admitted some weird like abuse in the past. He then arranged for a prostitute to come over to his mum's flat, and then he had sex in his mum's flat. It was really weird
on her funeral day. Yeah.
It's like, what? So
not?
That's upset Mel. That's where the kidnap came, because Dan Sullivan learnt about it, didn't he, from Billy, and then Mel was saved by Steve, got loads of money, and she split it with Dan and was like, Dan, you go, and I'm going to burn down the club and then go.
That's it. And then because they split the money 50-50, because they got Steve to get the money. So Steve had to sell pretty much his everything he possessed, which then led to shenanigans with
Yes, that's
Steve,
where that nicely leads over to that.
That then led to him to then be able to have his heist. Oh, that was just awful.
It was really odd because he like turned up and was like, oh, these are mates that I've done bank robbering with before, and they screwed me over. So he was like planning to get with this woman.
It was so dumb.
It was really confusing because the woman like worked for the man and she screwed them over, but then didn't. It was like, what?
They were stealing money from, I think it was a lingerie business. The owner of the lingerie business, who was dating the woman who then made a plan with Steve, had a birthday party which involved having 2 strippers while everyone cheered for him, including like all the workers like going yay to these strippers, like taking off his tie and putting oil on his face. So then they double crossed the 3 or 4 people who were doing the heist with
Steve
him.
was working with, because they'd done something to him in the past.
But the weird thing was that Steve acted out as if there was someone there, not us, not people.
Oh yeah, because
watching
he
on
trashed
TV.
he trashed someone's house or apartment, didn't he? Pretending
He
like
went to
he
the
didn't know.
woman's apartment. There was no one there to see him doing any of this.
that was
and he
it.
kicked the door down and started running around going, is there a safe? Or is there a cupboard like that? And it's like, who are you showing this to? Because there's no one to show this to. And then later on, later in that same episode, you found out that he had made the plan and it was a bluff to get rid of.
It was so weird. It was
made
just ridiculous.
No sense. And this was like awful.
It was really hard to
awful
even pay
EastEnders.
attention to it, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, the Asif and Martin like college party was happening, and they met that girl, and she was like, "I'm just a waitress," and then like she slept with Asif, and then he found out that she slept with people for money in the club, and he was like, "Oh, well, I'm better than you then." And it was like, what? It was really odd. Like, I don't know what they were trying to say with that storyline. It was really weird.
And at the same time, Martin
Martin's gay experience.
Yes, Martin had someone proposition him who was gay. And Martin was like, I'm not gay. And then started running around questioning his sexuality, like for a flash. And then he kind of had the chat with the gay guy.
Yeah, they bonded, didn't they?
Well, because of Sonia and him having a child,
Yeah.
and he talked to him about that. And then the gay guy was like, well, good luck. Tapped him on the head, and they both went back to Walford. It was just... it was just horrible.
Never to be spoken of again. What about Ian and Laura? They got wed. Nice quiet wedding. Kathy didn't bother turning up this one.
Don't blame her.
No.
Not much to come to, is it?
Then there was the weird summer where Ian just disappeared.
He went to see his mum.
He went to Kathy's wedding with Gavin
South
and
Africa.
Ben, and then like he was going to come home, but he got ill or
And Zach.
something. And Zach Hudson, he was there.
Zach Hudson was most definitely there. He hasn't just been made up in the last 2 years, I swear.
And then he was going to come back again, but then something happened to a passport, and then it was just really weird. But Ian was just not there for ages, for like 3 or 4 months. Or it felt like 3 or 4 months.
Maybe he lost his passport, or maybe it was like your brother and he, inverted commas,
just didn't want
lost
to
his
come back.
passport. He just didn't want to come back for another
So
couple of
Laura
weeks.
was left. I mean, a lot of things went wrong with Laura. She was losing loads of money and not paying any bills, but not telling Ian for some reason.
It's all happened again in like the space of 3 weeks. It's like all of a sudden they were in debt.
Yeah.
Absolute debt.
Then there was a fire because they left one of the pan
The
things
oil
on.
was left on, yeah.
And then the guy who they rent off of, like, started appearing and like coming on to Laura and like painting stuff for her and buying her new chip like equipment and like
No
a computer
computers, yeah.
and all sorts. And he was like hinting that he wanted to sleep with her as payment. And she kept going on dinner dates with him, but then backing out and then inviting him over and then telling him to leave. And then she had like printed off pictures of his wife and his kids. And she was like, look at them. what you're doing to them.
As he had her held down on the sofa, he was like going, this is your family. Why would you do this to your family? And he's like, I don't care.
And then the wife turned up when Ian returned because Laura couldn't tell him anything that had been going on. And he thought she'd been doing a really good job. And the wife turned up, and then nothing really. Then I can't remember what else happened. It just sort of fizzled out, and nothing else happened.
Well, she told the truth,
and then that was it.
Accepted it, and then that was the end of it.
Yeah, and that was nothing else happened for the rest of the year with those two.
Garfield from the Bill was bailed out of trouble.
It was a bit
anticlimactic,
really. Nothing really happened with Ian.
It seems to be the stories throughout this year, though. It's like this big build up, and then it's like a sigh, and then that's the end of it.
You know what was missing from this year? Pam St. Clement. She just disappeared for like 8 of the 12 months.
Ages, didn't she? I'm sure, because I've listened to her autobiography on Audible, and I'm sure she said that this was the period when she was doing a wildlife show, and so she went to like Madagascar and parts of Africa, and she was filming bits and pieces on.
She was just gone for ages, and then she appeared for like one episode to convince Natalie to do something, and then she disappeared again for like ages.
I'm fairly certain that was the same kind of time period. I mean, she came back at the end. Roy, to tie in with the Roy story of him like having another son, because he was still seeing Cora or whatever.
Jane, yes.
Jane. He was seeing Jane. And
I mean, the beginning of the year was the aftermath of the Frank and Pat affair. That was the beginning of this year. So that's when Roy wanted a divorce she went to visit Simon and all that was happening.
Oh, yeah, she went to New Zealand, didn't she? Yeah, that's right.
Natalie was pregnant forever.
Yes.
Still pregnant, somehow.
Well, she's due now.
But it was clever, it was clever how they did that with Lisa. Because Lisa was obviously pretending she was more pregnant than she was. So she was obviously showing more symptoms before Natalie.
She was pretending she was less pregnant, wasn't she?
Yes, less. So she was the same time as Natalie, basically, or she was meant to be. So that was quite clever how they interweaved that storyline together. But yeah, Barry and Natalie, they're big things, really. The secret son, wasn't it, and Jane and stuff.
It was at the end of the year, yeah, and Roy kind of keeping it secret from the family, and then the reveal.
Barry's big moment was obviously Joanne's cafe appeared.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
with the owner, Joanne.
But that's when Natalie first found out she was pregnant, because she lost her job. She lost her job again for very conspicuous reasons from the newspaper. She took a day off, and they were like, right, well, we're keeping an eye on you. And then she did a performance review, and there was nothing to show that she was doing very badly. She seemed to be fine. But then all of a sudden,
and Barry was like, it's okay because I've got a really good job.
Yeah, but he hadn't.
No,
and so
he was just sitting in the cafe.
He had to sit in the cafe, Joe's cafe, and kept like phoning up for jobs. But then every time people phoned back to say, here you go, here's your job, Natalie would answer the phone and say, it's okay, he's already got one. And then close the phone, and Roy would be like, Barry would be like, oh, what? No, I need the job. So anyway,
she kept phoning, and she thought Joanne was his like PA, didn't she?
Yes. And then she thought she was having an affair with Joanne.
Yeah, because she turned up and he said it's a posh French restaurant or something. And then Joanne had to create a French dish or something.
No, ridiculous. She just spoke a little bit of French.
Oh, was it?
She just went, oui, and then like, bonjour.
That impressed Natalie.
Oh, Natalie,
Yeah, so that was Barry's big thing. And then, Nathan appeared, the secret son. He's just a bit of a Steve Owen type clone, isn't he? He's like this swami,
Well, we're in the gangster period, aren't we? This is when EastEnders started to lean on the gangster side of East London rather than the family side of East London, wasn't it?
I've heard apparently the actor that played Nathan, apparently he's not in it for very long because he couldn't learn his lines, so they got rid of him. He couldn't learn lines, apparently.
You have to learn quick.
Yeah.
You're given the script like in the evening.
So he must have struggled with
the next day.
You see, 4 episodes. If he was in it 10 years ago, you'd have been well away with his 2 episodes.
they rehearsed in the old days. No, it's just like you're thrown into the scene and you have to do it.
What about some positive then? Dot and Jim throughout the year.
Oh, yeah.
They've slowly been coupling up, haven't they?
Yep.
Slow brew. It's been bubbling along. They did it really well, I think, them getting together, because there was quite a moment with Dot feeling guilty because Jim obviously was married before, and she felt guilty of trying to replace his old wife, and he was kind of admitted that he never loved her, didn't he? And he went to the graveyard, and Dot kept bringing him back to the graveyard, saying, "No, you have to come see, you have to visit," and he didn't want to. So the stuff like that, where it's like, that wasn't necessarily something you had to have in that storyline, but it really helped to make it a bit more believable, and like lovable, and like they've done a really good job with Jim, because he's such a... Before, when he was talked about before he was a character, he was horrible and nasty and racist, but they've done a really good job of
He still has
softening.
his moments.
Yeah, he still has those moments.
They remind us that he still is a little bit racist. Like,
he calls Niece like that little Indian woman or something.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
yeah.
And he tried to explain money
Christmas
to her.
Well, no, Christmas.
Oh, was
to
it
her.
Christmas? Yeah.
He was explaining what Christmas was, and he said, "I suppose what you'll be doing is just having a day off or something like that." And she was like, "No." You know, I like the fact that Dot also has like Jim has like almost wound her down, ground her down. Sorry, to love him, but at the same time, I think Dot reciprocates that kind of like that relationship between them. It's nice. Like Dot realizes that she's better off with someone else rather than alone.
And she had like such a barrier up, didn't she? She refused to like.
I think getting rid of Nick really helped her with that, because she realised she can't rely on other people. She has to rely on herself. But there's nothing wrong with letting the right people in. And I think she saw Jim as the right person. He had to work for it though. He got in a lot of trouble on a lot of occasions, but he got there. He got
on
there.
the London Eye, and she sort of said yes.
No,
I will.
She said, "If I guess," or something like that, wasn't
and turned away, and they both looked away from each other. So
that's the other nice thing. It's like there's this relationship. You know, they're older. You know, they're not young. They're not giddy. They're not in love. They're not kind of all over each other. They're not like so. You know, to this proposal wasn't going to be like them jumping on one another after they've done it, or kissing and going mad. It was always going to be this kind of almost like a contractual thing. And that's not meant in a really nasty way. It's because it's benefiting them both. They're both got each other's company and each other's love, and they clearly do love each other. And it's lovely to see Dot. The moments I love with Dot the best is when she clearly is happy, and her arranging her engagement party was like the highlight of her year. Like she was inviting anyone and anyone.
Oh, she was, yeah. Telling everyone, wasn't she, to come. Okay, well, what about Terry? Had an odd year, because this was his first full year without Irene, without any family. They sort of paired up Janine and Terry together.
Well, in a kind of more than friends way as well.
Yeah, it was really weird, wasn't it?
That
when they kissed each other,
really
it was like,
uncomfortable to watch. Yeah,
it's gross. It's horrible. And then he sort of, I don't know. He dated that Margaret for a bit, didn't he?
Margaret,
the old ex-model woman.
Yes,
she
Margaret,
is.
who Janine didn't trust, or did she not trust her? It was more that Janine didn't like her interfering.
Jealous. Yeah, it was
more of a jealousy thing.
It was odd.
And that, yeah,
you don't really know if she was telling the truth or not, Margaret, with her brother, do you?
She was, because at the end you saw him getting into a taxi and he looked very ill and frail.
Yeah, but she said, "Oh, we will get that money somehow." So, I don't know. It's kind of.
Oh, really? So you think that perhaps Janine?
She said
was
it was something
slightly
like she said something like, "Don't worry, we'll get that money another way." It was something.
I don't think she meant that. If she said that, I don't think she would have meant that toward.
I trusted Margaret. I liked her.
I like Margaret.
It's a shame she's kind of disappeared, and then Terry and Janine kind of never really the same after that. Janine came back with a new haircut and a suit.
Yeah,
because she had money, and she was like. That was a bit of a change in her character, wasn't it? I feel they've.
But then this is where the manipulative Janine started. So she
got
tried
a bob.
she tried to do it with Terry. Didn't work because I don't think she could, because she always saw Terry as kind of like a father figure. So it felt a bit creepy and weird. And so she then moved on to Billy, and then because Billy
got money from the heist from Steve, didn't he? And he was spending it
he spent it
all basically within a month.
Yeah.
So that impressed Janine for a bit, and he bought a waterbed under Beppe's advice.
Which worked, funnily enough.
No, Beppe knows.
Beppe
He's had lots
knows.
of practice this year.
Well, Beppe was doing it to take the mick though out of Billy, wasn't he? He was just doing it to wind him up.
Janine was just going to say yes to anything, wasn't she? And then the dog was
Terrence.
bought, Terrence.
Mm-hmm.
So that was going
What a
on.
thing.
And yeah, that's all. Then again, Janine kind of pitted out into that's all there was really. There wasn't much else she was doing. She was just this new businesswoman with a bleach bob.
Well, she's working with Terry again now, but they're not. I don't think they're living together. I think Janine's got her own place, and Terry's kind of living in that house on his own now. But yeah, I'm presuming then 2002, you know, the following year.
Well, Terry leaves quite soon.
Oh, right. So that's going to leave Janine in a quite a vulnerable position then, isn't it?
But I think Janine and Paul have like a friendship, don't they? Paul Truman, I think.
They do at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at next
But
year.
it depends on what Paul, because Paul didn't end up getting the B&B, did he? So...
No, part of it's Patrick's.
Yeah.
Because they were married, or it all goes back to some...
Because he contested the will, and they kind of agreed that Patrick had some kind of right to it. While Anthony just kind of dawdles along.
Okay, well, we have got the Slaters then. So we've got the Little Mo Trevor story and the Cat Zoe story to go through. So
yeah. Well, we've kind of talked about the Cat and Zoe one already a little bit.
Yes.
You know, when...
I mean, at the beginning of the year, you found out that Zoe was Kat's daughter. Then it was quiet for a while. And then
Well, it wasn't that quiet, no, because then that's when Zoe went missing.
Oh, no. I mean, when we first learnt, she said it to Charlie.
Oh, before.
Yeah, and then it went quiet, and then the Lynn's Hendoos thing and Harry
reveal.
giving Zoe a job and all that came out.
Yeah, she was going to go off with Harry to, what was it, Benidorm? Mallorca.
Mallorca, you're working on my pub.
Mallorca.
They'll love you out there, Zoe.
Much I love you, will do. But he didn't even know. To be fair, well, I'd say to be fair to Derek, not Derek, sorry, Harry. He didn't know that Zoe was his daughter either.
No, he was left shocked, wasn't he?
He was. But basically, they didn't want to hurt. Peggy was all ready to go.
No, because she was leaving, wasn't she? She was leaving.
She cut her ties in
because
Walford.
Sharon upset her.
Sharon had been
cut up her curtains.
Yeah.
So she was off to Mallorca with Harry.
Ketchup on them.
With a Z-list version of Frank, what Harry was, wasn't he? He was like a really bad version of Frank.
But this is where Harry asked Charlie to write him a letter, basically explaining that he's going to go to New York on his own and goodbye.
And because Charlie had a little thing for Peggy, didn't he? So he wrote from his heart, but on behalf of his brother.
But Peggy didn't understand it, did she? And then slowly the lies and the truths, I should say, from the Slater families sort of seeping out into the square, and more
because
and more
that's when
Trevor
Trevor kind of noticed, because Zoe had gone missing and Kat was in hospital for trying to kill herself.
Yeah,
and he was pushing Little Mo, like he wanted to know the family secret, and Gary was doing the same to
I was going to say
Lynn.
Gary was doing the same thing,
but that was okay.
Yeah, but to be, I mean, Trevor was doing it in a bit more of an abusive way toward Mo.
Yes, especially where it escalated.
Yeah, and Gary, he wanted to know the truth, and Lynn kind of repaid him by then flirting and dumping him and going with Beppe. So it was a bit different.
Because Trevor was the one who announced it to everyone, wasn't he? In the Vic.
Yes, because didn't he? He did something to Mo, little Mo.
Yeah, Kat was winding him up or something.
Did Kat wind him up? Because
someone was.
It was
because it was when he was working at the Vic. He announced it, and then Sharon sacked him, didn't she?
Yeah, but
Sharon stood up for him actually.
Yeah, Sharon stood up for Charlie. Charlie's went in there for a reason or another. I'm sure it's because little Mo had admitted that Trevor had hit her and abused her. And so Charlie went into the pub to kind of have it out with him, and then that's when Trevor...
One of his twitchy eye moments, where the camera goes all shaky with him as he stumbles into a room. They do that a lot with
goes
Charlie.
a little bit more like squeezed down a little bit more than squinted. And he went out to get Trevor, and then that's when Trevor announced it to the whole pub. And then because at the time Peggy was basically blaming the Slaters for
Harry leaving.
Harry leaving, and so then the truth all came out at that point and why Zoe had gone.
And that's how Trevor alienated Little Mo from the family, basically by doing that. So he had her all to himself at the B&B. Zoe left to be homeless for quite a long time
and be groomed.
She kept her fringe, which annoyed me. Her fringe was still there, even after being homeless. But yeah,
she'd been homeless like 3 months, and she had a very, very well tidy fringe. She got pneumonia.
It's like the worst fringe I've ever seen. That is hers and Lynn's fringe.
Lynn's fringe? What fringe? It's like literally 2 strands of hair that slowly goes over.
Zoe's is only about 4 pairs.
Well, no, hers is like 4 lots grouped together. It's like she's got some Vaseline together and just like used her 4 fingers to kind of put it through the front, and so it just caused those 4 bits. Those fringes.
I know.
2001.
They need to grow them out quick. So we had a little bit of a storyline with her when she met Kelly and the woman who's now an MP. I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
Roxy, wasn't it? Roxy
was a character.
And she was like this nice northern lady who was bringing her in and giving her a bath and a room, and she was really kind and nice, and then it all suddenly turned.
Well, Zoe didn't suspect that like maybe she wanted some payment for
this.
and
it quickly turned where that man
was prostitution.
The man sort of wanted a young girl basically, but Zoe puked up.
Oh no, it was sick, wasn't it? Because he said he pushed away her fringe and said,
yes, put your hair down.
You remind me of my daughter.
Yeah, my daughter's friends and stuff.
My daughter's friends, that's it. And it was like, ooh.
But no, they wrote it that Zoe didn't have to do anything because she was sick on him, so that was okay.
But then she tried to force her to do it another time, and then that's when
Cat turned up.
Cat turned up and
Cat Slayer.
headbutt her, which was cut.
I know.
From the repeat.
I wanted to see that.
I know.
That was good.
Drama
that
Channel
was.
cut it in the UK.
And then Zoe was back for Christmas, wasn't she? Around the table, making Charlie happy.
And he was concerned for the pimp, though, wasn't he? He said, "Oh, you may have broken your nose."
Oh yeah. Here's a tissue.
Yeah. Cat was like, "Shut up, Danny." Yeah. So Cat, so as you say, Zoe was back for Christmas, but the trauma and the memories of that will never leave her for a few weeks because they're still talking about it, aren't they? In the Slater
Yeah,
house.
because she had a cough and then she went to hospital for like another break. So how many breaks she's been having this year?
Well,
break after break after break.
Bless her. Maybe she was doing pantomime.
And then at the same time, we had the horrible Little Mo storyline where the Christmas dinner, she wanted to go to Lynn's wedding, didn't she? So she bought a hat and hid it in the bathroom.
And a
he
deep
found
fryer.
it. Yeah.
£20.
He did all sorts of horrible things to Mo.
He raped her twice.
Yes.
He raped her twice, and he
found out she was having birth control, which he wanted a baby.
She was terminating the birth.
Yeah.
And that basically sent him doolally, for lack of a better term. And so then that caused Mo to leave him, which then Trevor found out that she was babysitting Louise.
Oh yes, I didn't know the iron stuff was this soon.
It all happened so quickly.
Yeah.
I thought there was a much longer gap between
pushing her in the Christmas dinner,
the Christmas dinner gravy scenario to the iron
what
around the end. I thought there was a longer gap than a week.
I remember watching that live when I was younger as well. The iron thing. I was really like, yeah, go on, Mo, hit him again. But she did. She hit him like I thought she only hit him twice, from my memory.
Well, she hit him when he was on the floor.
I know.
As well.
She just kept going.
She was like, oh, okay, went for another go.
But he crawled out, didn't he, in Pauline's kitchen?
He did, and now the big mystery is, where's Trevor?
There's lots of men that look like him now, walking around the square that Mo thinks is him.
It's like, where's Wally with Trevor? Yeah.
And then the big sort of Christmas storyline was the Louise, Phil, Sharon, because Sharon's gone.
Sharon left Phil on Christmas Day because Sharon somehow found the only flight that leaves the UK on Christmas Day. I'm adamant that flights do not leave on Christmas Day or come in on Christmas Day. I mean, I'm adamant that that's true.
Phil was being just awful because he found out that Sharon can't have kids. So instead of supporting his alleged love of his life, new girlfriend to be wife, whatever, he was like, well, what's wrong with you? You sure you can't? I'll see a doctor. And then he like went to Anthony's house and was like, I'm going to tell you all Sharon's private information and you tell me if I can have a kid, yes or no. Yeah. And it's like, for God's sake, he was acting like Sharon had purposely not allowed herself to have children. And he was blaming her. And then when she then said, oh, it was Grant's child, I had an abortion. Well, how dare you get rid of a Mitchell? And
Yeah. It all kicked
God's
off.
sake, Phil, he was so awful. It's like, this is why Lisa is pretending that this child isn't yours.
Yeah.
Because you're awful to her and abusive to her, and now you're blaming Sharon that she can't have kids.
It's just constant abuse by
And the
Phil.
second he learnt that she couldn't have kids, he wasn't interested.
Mm-hmm.
He's only ever interested if there's a child on the way.
Breeder, isn't he? He just wants to breed.
It's like when he found out Lisa was pregnant the first time, he suddenly wanted to get back with her, and then she had a miscarriage, and he got rid of her again.
But the second time as well, when she was pregnant with his baby, and he found out that she was pregnant, he endeavoured to find out whether it was his. And if it was his, he wanted her. It was her. That's his property. This is what it is, isn't it? It's property to him. Phil Mitchell's property.
It's just annoying.
Phil's, and also he was horrible to Jamie this year because he found out that Jamie knew the truth.
Punched him after being like, "I'm going to take you in away from your abusive uncle."
The abuse you're getting from Billy is disgraceful.
Now I'm going to punch you.
Now I'm going to abuse you. Yeah, it's like Phil Mitchell's just a horrible character.
It's just horrible. He just gets worse each year.
He does.
Oh, he's so annoying. Oh.
I mean, are we at peak Phil Mitchell now? Are we? This is just a steady straight line of Phil Mitchell being a prick the whole time now.
That's it.
This is it. This is us now. Oh, good. But yeah, no, he's just, and also like Peggy. I love Peggy. Don't get me wrong, but like Peggy was also filtering ideas into Phil's mind. Like first of all, they were talking about adoption. Sharon and Phil were talking about adoption, and Peggy was like, "Can't have an adoption in the Mitchells." So Peggy then suggested the idea of Phil like.
Getting someone pregnant.
Yeah, getting someone else pregnant. Again, breeding.
You kept buying magazines to read, like pregnancy magazines, and then hiding them in bins and then reading them again when Sharon wasn't looking. Yeah. So what are you expecting to learn in this magazine, Peggy?
Well, if she doesn't know by now how she had Phil and Sam and Grant, then she's in a lot of trouble, unfortunately.
I mean, the New Year's Eve episode, obviously, we had the Peggy versus Pauline slacking match.
That was all right. That was fun, eh?
Strawberry blonde at 70. Don't make me laugh.
It was brilliant, wasn't it? That dialogue between them. It was fantastic, to be fair. That was a good little slog between them both.
It was so good. I love that scene. It's so funny. It's so like crap. Like Wendy Richards like at her campus, but it's still funny.
And Barbara Windsor just kind of like just getting more and more wound up, angry, and reaction shots from everyone around. I mean, that was one thing Beppe had as well. He was good for the reaction
tie on
shots.
His head.
Yeah, just every now and then go, ooh, They're like zooming in on him. Oh, poor Robbie was unlucky in love as well, wasn't he, on New Year's Eve? Because he thought he found his one after he
disappeared
lost Kerry.
as well, didn't he?
He lost
to
Kerry.
India.
Yeah.
Yes, she
Rob,
wrote him a letter.
I'm not marrying you.
Yeah.
Go away, Rob. I don't want to be with you anymore. Where's your ring? Get out.
Yeah, he like just got a letter from her saying that. So we had the week as well when he met his dad, his real dad.
Oh,
he went to find him.
That's when they went to Brighton.
Yes.
That's when Gary went to meet his first love. Before
and he had that weird dream of Lynn in a dress. How the episode opened.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what?
Gary, are we getting married? Gary.
Oh yeah, and that was awful as well because Kat and Zoe went to that man's apartment.
Oh yeah,
and there was a weird montage of them cutting things up, like cutting his clothes up, and oh, it's awful. It's like, why
spraying ketchup on this? Like paintings? Because Kat found some gut. Well,
that seems like that was ages ago. Was that definitely 2001? It must have been.
It has to be if Robbie's found his dad. Yeah, he goes travelling.
Oh yeah, because he goes up with them, doesn't he?
He gets the money from his dad to go travelling.
Yeah,
that's right. So it must have been
because his dad comes back.
Then. His dad comes to for a week, doesn't he? He comes back and
that montage was if we've already talked about it last year, I don't care. That montage of Kat and Zoe was so bad.
Yeah, because Kat,
it was just awful. So bad.
Because Gary also went to see his mum, didn't he? Because his mum lives in Brighton. We made that as a lie.
No, he made that up because he went to see that woman who owned that shop who he had a thing with or something.
And he asked, what's his face to lie for him?
Jamie
to lie for him. That's
and Jamie and Zoe kept like.
Oh, that's when Jamie
together.
and Zoe hooked up.
Yeah.
And Sonia found out.
So the sisters did it for themselves.
Sisters were doing it for themselves.
And did all that
throwing
awful stuff.
Crap into the swimming pool.
Yeah, Robbie got the money. Then he said he gave some to Sonia so she could do her nursing thing.
Yeah,
and she had a little piggy bank that Jim kept going into.
Well, Jim delved into and then went on holiday with Dot.
Yeah.
Which he now is paying back.
And then Robbie returned. He wanted a whole new career And he didn't want the car lot for some reason, so he then went to sweeping the market again.
When we went back to the thing that he
which
left
didn't make any
Walford
sense
for.
because he made a big deal about like,
Yeah.
nope, I've got this new thing I've got going, and that was what it was.
Yeah, because he was going to sell cars on the car lot and work at the taxis, and he again did it for a week.
He said, that's the old me.
And
then so he's sort of been pursuing Nita.
Well, he had a girlfriend though when he went travelling.
Oh yeah, no one believed
him.
And it was
Bless
true.
him. And he made dinner and everything, didn't he? Oh,
She didn't
bless.
turn up.
Poor Robbie, eh?
So yeah, Nita was just Nita.
I don't mind Nita. I don't know why
She's
you've
a
got
bit
a problem.
common. I don't know.
Bit common.
Not common, but I don't know, the
Middle
way she
class white man.
the way she says, I don't know.
common.
There's just something the way she says her lines is a bit. I don't know. There's just something.
Bit common.
There's just something not connecting there with me and Nita.
Just a bit common. I like Nita.
Bit
I think
rough.
she's fine. I mean,
She's
I didn't-
okay, but she's not. I
She's
wouldn't
kind of
care
like-
if she wasn't there.
She's kind of like the mean girl character, isn't she? Like she likes laughing at boys. It's
Yeah.
like I'm a young independent girl, but
But I love Robbie.
I love Robbie. Robbie's my one. Yeah.
Right, well there you go. I think that's
everything.
so a lot of them. I don't think we're missing anyone. Is there? I'm sure we're missing lots of things that were going on, but that's the highlights anyway. So now comes the time. Now comes the time to give it a rating, a grade. At the end of each one, we do this.
Right. I'm ready.
It was just the middle was a bit saggy, wasn't it?
Aren't we all? I mean, like I say, there were some real moments which have gone down in history. Phil getting shot, You Ain't My Mother, the mode, Christmas dinner scene, the iron round the head. You're right, the middle bit was awful. The Steve Owen heist literally was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
And it just went on forever.
And it went on forever, and it was just terrible. I didn't mind the Dan and Mel stuff. That was fine. But again, the kind of duologues between them, it didn't feel like real dialogue that them two were like two people talking.
There was a lot of times where I just stopped watching. It was just sort of in the background. Basically.
Phil wound me up this. I think I truly believe that 2001 is the year where I got bored of Phil. So I had 20 more years to go.
I know he's just annoying.
2001 was when Phil kind of did it, and also where the Mitchells felt like they weren't important. Do you know what I mean?
But still taking up too much time.
But they were trying to be made important. Like there was much more interesting things happening around them. Even the Pat and Roy thing, I would have watched a lot more of. And
not enough
Barry.
Pat.
Not enough Pat. And
the main
Ian as
issue
well.
here.
I really I like Ian kind of being this Ian at the moment.
He's working with Mel. Mel came back with money,
they've
didn't
started.
she?
She's doing the meal machine again.
Yeah, that's it.
That's right.
And hired him. So
And
that's how that story ended.
Well, she's got like big aspirations for like sushi and like.
And Steve bought her a house for some reason.
Yeah, why
and
did
she got really angry, but she still accepted it.
She's accepted the house and said, "But we haven't got a chance of getting back together."
And then Nathan, because her and Nathan were dating, and he just turned around randomly and was like, "Oh, I only was sleeping with you to make fun of." To make it up for Steve, and it's like, where did that come from? I think that may be the time where
I was
he
going to say,
couldn't learn lines, and they were like, "We'll be getting rid of you within 6 months."
I think that they planned more with Nathan because with the
I
whole
suppose.
Roy story,
It was very weird.
Nathan kind of just disappeared exactly, and there wasn't much more to it. It was weird seeing though Cora not being Cora, the actress. I should.
Anyway, you're meant to be giving a grade.
Yes, sorry. So my grade for this year, because it wasn't a bad year,
No.
this was is a B.
B, solid, just B.
B. I was thinking B minus, but I'm not going to say B minus because there was some really cracking episodes. So
I mean, that's what I was going to say, like C plus B minus.
Better than C.
No, yeah,
plus.
that's what I mean. So I think B minus. Then I'll say
B minus.
just because of the dodgy weeks we had, full weeks of.
It's the first
Not
lot
good.
of shenanigans that comes to mind, and I'm worried.
But not even good shenanigans. They were just awful to watch.
No shenanigans are good.
And there's loads
I
of weird
hate
guest
all shenanigans.
characters, and so
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
B.
that's true. There was a lot of guest characters.
Yeah.
Goldie. God, how Goldie was in it,
How
wasn't
could
he?
we forget?
God's sake, that was awful because he was after the money from Paul. So
Yeah.
Anthony had to take out
Take
a
a
loan.
loan.
There's so many people who've got money problems, and yet they kind of have the problem, and you never hear it again.
No.
That's the end of it.
But yeah, so I mean, it was fine. It was just a bit bloated. The 4 episodes a week. It was just all. There was a lot of filler, which wasn't necessary.
A lot of filler, no killer.
Yeah,
A little bit of killer.
but the show's still produced well, and the stories interweave, and it's like all of that is still very good. Like the interweaving and characters in the background and all that's all still good. It's just there's lots of
This is the second
dodgy
year for John
moments.
York, isn't it?
This is his last year. The next one is the new producer in a few months. So 2002 will be a new producer.
Well, that'd be interesting then to see. There's been a lot of zooming.
Got Kim Metcalf coming.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear
Frank,
that.
one of his last appearances.
Well, this
second
is
to last.
Fake death, isn't it? Story.
So there is a few bits.
I miss the zooms. You know the zooms when something dramatic happens. That's the John.
Yes.
John York seems to like
He
that.
does them, doesn't he?
Like them a lot.
A pan and a zoom he likes to do. Pan around the room, zoom into someone.
Yeah. Oh, and viewpoint shots. When
Point
you
of
see it
view.
from the point of view of
Charlie
the character.
stomping around,
Yeah.
punching Harry. Or
Two Charlies.
Yeah.
Yep. Harry and also going into the B&B.
For Trevor.
For Trevor.
Yes. Well, there you go. So, yeah, good year. Let us know what you grade it. Someone's already given us a grade, I think, before we even recorded this.
They had.
So, we're a bit behind.
Oh, apologies to that person. I'm so sorry.
But it's on Twitter. We'll retweet it once we release this.
Okay.
So, the listeners are ahead of us. But, there's just so many episodes.
Too much.
You miss a bit and then you suddenly have 20 episodes downloaded and it's just
well, and also if your Skybox decides not to record them, you then have to watch them on stream.
Yeah, we had no Sky for like a week and it was all, and then this kept going wrong this year. But anyway, that's the go. So that's the review for 2001 EastEnders, and then God knows how long it's going to take for 2002, but we will get there for Kim Metcalf, the year of Sam Mitchell. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.